Hi, welcome to my micro teaching assignment. My name is Jeremy Clark, and I'm going to talk to you today about the topic of the stages of child and adolescent development. One of the objectives, hopefully, is that we can notice different traits that children exhibit as they go through the different stages of life. I want to talk about how they develop, not just physically, but also emotionally and cognitively. And then I'm going to introduce what I'm going to call these 4 stages of development and about typically how old children are as they go through these stages. Before I do that, I want to talk about some of the major theorists of where I did my research. One of them was Erik Erikson. Psychosocial stage theory is what he came up with. And the big emphasis on his theory was that as a child develops from childhood into adolescence and into adulthood, they start to develop this identity of themselves at an early age, and how that identity can change based on influences both immediately around them and their environment. The other theorist is Lawrence Kohlberg, and his theory is based on the moral understanding of right and wrong. Even at an early age, children develop this sense of morality of they know they're not supposed to do something, so there's this struggle with discriminating between the choices of what is right and what is wrong. Jean Piaget is a Swiss psychologist, and his cognitive development theory focuses more on the ways of thinking, how they're changed as we grow from child to adolescence and to adults, based on our environment. Things immediately affect us. And then finally, another theorist is Urie Bronfenbrenner. His theory is based off of an ecosystem. And he talks about the different stages of development as far as a microsystem or a macro system, the little things in our life as we grow from early childhood into adolescence, how those things influences who you are and your identity and how you develop through these stages. So I'm going to give you a summary of my 4 stages from my research. I'm going to call the first stage infancy. It's from birth to about 2 years old. A lot of you may have heard the terrible twos. There is some reference there. The other stages, they're early childhood, so from ages 2 to about 7. And we're going to look at different traits that children during this phase of their life they show characteristics of. And then the middle childhood is from ages 7 to about 11. So all of those elementary school children, so I know a lot of you teachers are elementary school teachers, so hopefully some of the information will be helpful. And then the adolescent stage. I teach high school mathematics. This is the stage of development in which I deal with the most. But hopefully there's some things even from our personal experiences we might recognize. So the first stage is infancy. It's, like I said, from birth to about the age of 2. A lot of things are developing here. Movement is established. Babies start to roll from their stomachs to their backs. They start to wiggle their arms, their legs. I'm sure you've seen them even put their foot in their mouth. So they're establishing this brain activity that tells them that they can freely move their body, and they start learning these things. They're also what I call egocentric, and what I mean by that is at this stage of development, they are very needy. They need someone to feed them, someone to change them, someone to cook for them and take them places. And they're not very autonomous at this stage. Babies learn to cry when they're hungry or cry when they need their diaper changed. So in this sense, they are very egocentric. They learn to manipulate objects. It's not so much the object itself, but what can I do with the object? Can I pick it up? Can I drop it? Can I push it around or roll it over? And so they get in this very discovery stage. They want to explore everything. Everything in their environment is new to them. So they're developing rapidly and learning a lot just by the age of 2. And Erikson, one of his early stages called trust versus mistrust. Just an example of this is when a baby meets grandma for the first time. So a lot of times they cry. They mistrust this person. They don't know them. It's not familiar to them. So they're starting to learn this idea of trust and mistrust. The next stage is early childhood. And in this stage is from ages 2 to about 7, so the preschool years, leading up to kindergarten age. And a lot of things, they're starting to really understand their senses. They're reacting to sound more. They begin this, the speaking, the language a lot more, going from just words to phrases to sentences. So they're using these senses to really gain more knowledge about their environment. And their motor skills start to improve. When they first learn to walk before the age of 2, they're real wobbly, their motor skills are not very developed. But by this age, they're running, they're playing on the playground, and playing sports, getting active outside. And their thinking skills become more abstract. They don't necessarily need an object in front of them to be able to think about it. And they develop this fantasy world a lot. And just as an example, this is a stage where a lot of kids have imaginary friends. They start thinking more abstractly. The facilitation of language, like I mentioned, is a lot more fluent now. They're able to use a lot more vocabulary, and they're communicating a lot better now. And of course, their eagerness to try new things. They're very curious at this age. So a lot of these traits, I'm sure you've experienced, maybe not in your classroom, but just being around children in general. And their difference between right and wrong. They start to really learn this sense of morality. Even at a young age, before the age of 2, they know that if they've been told no by their parents, then they're responding to that. They're starting to learn. And at this age, now they're starting to make their own decisions on what is right and wrong. At the stage of middle childhood, so from the ages of 7 to about 11, so the elementary school children, they really develop a more rational thought process. And in that, they also are really developing their morals, things they pick up from their parents or teachers or ones that are close in their environment. They really start to understand right and wrong in a more deeper sense now because of this rational thinking. And the ability to conserve. And what I mean by this is they no longer need an object to tell them something can change or something is not always the same. Also, the ability to conserve is they can refrain from doing something they're not supposed to do. That sense starts to really develop at this stage. And gender roles also become a part. Boys playing sports, girls playing with dolls, those things become more prevalent. They see that in their peers. They want to fit in a group. So at this age, boys want to play with boys, girls want to play with girls, so they start identifying with gender more. And then your adolescent stage. A lot of theorists stop at the age of 16, but some of them go a little further in life, and especially in my experience, having children of my own in this stage, as well as the students I teach at this age. They are still developing, so they begin to get this great sense of deductive reasoning now. They can deduce things on their own. They develop good problem-solving skills, and by teaching math, this is the stage where I really work hard on that with my students, because that is one of the hardest things for students to really improve upon, because it's new. And then evaluate thinking logically. They no more need to be told about the rules or the social norms. They begin to really think logically for themselves and start making their own decisions at this point, even if it's right or wrong. And then they develop this sense of individuality. And that's something that several theorists both agree with, that in this stage that the development, they really become unique in themselves. They identify with who they are. They begin to understand themselves. And a lot of that shows in the way we see them today. So in closing, the 4 stages are infancy, early childhood, middle childhood, and adolescence. And I thank you for joining me today. I appreciate any feedback or any comments you could share. And thank you for your time.